is your relationship with time? Are you wired and tired, stressed and overwhelmed, busy and going nowhere? Or just want to scale your business? Welcome to Take Back Time with your host, Penny Zenker. Penny focuses on books, strategies, tools, and tips to help you work smarter and approach your time more strategically. As a result, you can have more energy, focus, and get more done in less time. Be more efficient and effective. Get ready to take back time.
Hello, and welcome to Take Back Time. My name is Penny Zenker, and I'm your host. And today, for you leaders, business leaders, and entrepreneurs, we have a special treat because we talk on this show about how to take back time. And what does it mean, really? It means thinking more strategically so that you can get further faster, so that you can kind of compress time, so to speak. And today's guest is going to help you to do that. His name is Tom Gledhill, and he's combined decades of his experience from building and selling his companies and helping many other business owners to sell their companies. So you can too. And he helps them to develop, or he did develop, this XITpro System that helps business owners to make their companies more saleable. And Tom is the author of the XITpro System and the online course with the same name. Tom, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Penny. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm excited to have you, and I'll tell you why. Is because, for those of you who know my background, some maybe not, is I had my own technology business, and I built it up from just me, and I sold it to a public company when living in Switzerland, so it was a French public company. And, I've been through a lot of mergers and acquisitions, and I think it's so key for every entrepreneur to be thinking about when they're growing their business, to be thinking about selling it even when they're starting it. Tell me your opinion about that.
That's interesting that you say that because so few people do that. I happened to do that. I knew what I wanted to do. I either wanted to do an IPO, which I thought was minimal probability, but have a larger company acquire my company, and that's exactly what happened. But most people, Penny, that I have seen over the years, business owners that I've seen, they got into their business either by accident or by necessity. They might have been laid off or terminated from their job, or they might have been working for a business owner, and the business owner had no family and, to turn the business over to. And the person that was working for him was a good employee, been there for years, and they give the key employee a really good deal and a good way of paying for it over time.
Right.
A lot of them have done either one of those two. So most of them have gotten in the business by accident. They don't really think about the exit.
Well, I think even people who do it purposely, they might have a big skill and they're excited to take that skill to the marketplace. They're the expert in what they do, but not necessarily in building business. And I think that no matter what reason you get into it, you have so many more opportunities if you think about that from the very beginning by setting it up like that.
Absolutely. It's interesting. You said that you don't think about it. I had a great lawyer, and he just happened to be an expert at mergers and acquisitions, and he had a lot of connections. And I was calling him about and we had been talking about selling my company, and we were talking about another subject. And he said, "How are you making out with selling your company?" And I said, the guy's name was John. I said, "Gee, John, I really haven't been thinking about it." I said, "We're doing cash flow is great. We've just come out with a new product. Everybody's excited and things are going great." And he said to me, "Tom, now's the time to sell." And, and quite frankly, I had been so busy with my company that I hadn't thought about it. And there's another part to it too, is that I knew my company, I knew my market, I knew my product. I could sell my product, but I knew nothing about selling my company.
Right.
I didn't know who was going to buy it. I didn't know what they were looking for. And I was really not, even though I had a lot of experience in the entrepreneurship and business world, I really didn't know a lot about selling a company with with an infrastructure and any size.
So tell some of the business owners who are like, this is like, what? They're just waking up to this idea. So tell them what are, a couple tips, one or two things that they should really be thinking about now, whatever stage their business is, What are two concrete things that they should start looking at now that you also offer as part of, helping them in your system?
The key things is, what are the business buyer types that would be interested in your company at your revenue level? And also, what are they looking for? Those are the two key elements, because that determines everything. Because, who determines value in a business? Business
totally. Right.
The buyers do.
It's not buy it, right?
Yeah. So it's not like it's like anything else. The person that's buying it is the one that determines the value.
Absolutely. So you're saying, so as a business owner, if I've just started my business or it's been in business for a number of years, I can go out and look for who are the potential buyers, who would be interested, how would I complement my business, complement their business, and see what it is that they'd be willing to pay for it.
Exactly.
And so what are some of the criteria? Like, how would I know what somebody would be willing to pay for it? Like, what kind of questions do I ask or look for?
Well, first of all, you have to have some history behind your company before you think about selling it. Unless you have a game-changing technology. And there are companies that sold before they even had one customer, and people like Microsoft and Google bought them, but that's rare. So you need some experience. You need to build it up. You need 3 or 4 years of experience before you start thinking about selling it.
Well, I want to challenge you there for a minute. So I disagree. I think that the way you set up your company from the beginning, like, I agree with you that you might not find a buyer. However, I think that the choices you make in growing your business, right, in the way you do accounting, in the way that you set up your processes, in the way that you set up your contracts, I think it matters to start thinking about it up front, because you can make yourself, they're going to audit your business in its entirety. So the more organized and structured you are, the better you're going to prepare yourself for sale. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. No, I wouldn't disagree with that at all.
Okay.
That's true. You asked me, though, about valuing a company.
Yes. I just want to make sure that for the people who are listening, because you said you don't need to think about selling the business when you first start. So I just want to say, from the context of finding a buyer, yes, just so people listening understand, but the context of the choices and decisions you make in preparing your business, it's still of value, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. So back to your point. Sorry to interrupt and just provide that clarification, but this is
right.
We're blowing people's minds here. So
I'm glad you did, because improving your company at any point in time is certainly positive. And we can get into that a little later.
Totally.
To answer your question about valuing, there are people, me included, that do business valuation. And, you look at, there are two things that determine value. And one is really your cash flow.
Mm-hmm.
And the other is the risk that's presented to a potential buyer. Those two things, and one is directly proportional, and the other is inversely proportional. Those are the two things that determine value. But to get a professional valuation really takes a lot of time to do that. You need a lot of information.
Yep.
You need to really analyze the company and break it down, see where the risk factors are, and to see what are the buyer types looking for that may buy your company.
So what are some of those things, the risk factors that you might, just so people can start to think about them?
Sure. I've developed a system to help small business owners, in the revenue range of, let's say, $500,000 to about $5 million.
Mm-hmm.
After that, you start employing professional help. But people under $5 million typically don't have professional help, and they're running the show themselves. And basically, I've broken down into 16 of what I call value drivers.
Mm-hmm.
And these value drivers are things like the industry that you're in, your company reputation, the products and service that you have, the competition, your personnel, your key personnel, the systems that you have, your cash flow, growth. Those are basically the basic value drivers. But if you really want to get a premium for your company, there are what I call the big hitter value drivers, and they are scalability, the ability to grow your company with minimal capital investment.
Right.
Yeah, recurring revenues, the revenues that just keep coming in, like maintenance contracts.
Absolutely.
They are real revenue and value enhancers. Then you have bankability, the ability to get a loan, because somebody that's buying your company is going to need a loan, and they're going to use your company to get a loan. So if your company has good bankability, that increases your value. And the final one is intellectual property. Now, everybody really has some intellectual property. You just have to look for it, something that's unique. And it doesn't have to be a product. It can be a process. It can be a way you handle transactions. But what you need to do is you need to document that so that somebody looking at your company, thinking of acquiring it, will see that documentation, and that adds value also. So those are the kinds of things that people ought to be looking at. Probably the two biggest things for a very small company to focus on are key employees. Hire low and fire fast.
Yeah.
And number two are your systems, and they should be documented. And if you can automate as many of these systems as possible, because the documentation comes with it.
Yeah.
So key employees and systems.
Fantastic. So, people's wheels are turning and they're like, oh my goodness, I haven't even really spent much time thinking about that. So, but the good thing is those two key things that you talked about, whether you're selling your business or not, those are the most important things to be successful anyway, right?
Exactly.
And those other points that you made are so important that people think about them, at least have it in the background of the big picture, right? Like you said, you focus on those two things that are going to move you forward faster anyway. Why not think about those other things as well so that you can position yourself, for sale in 3 to 5 years, let's say?
A lot of business owners think that, they have kind of a macho attitude that they are indispensable. Most valuable companies are those where the business owner is dispensable. And that allows the business owner, because he's not involved in day-to-day operations, that allows the business owner to put his or her feet up on a desk and just think about how they're going to grow the company.
Yeah.
Think about innovation. And if they're a lifestyle company, they can think about playing golf or going sailing or whatever.
Absolutely.
But the beauty is you get business-free vacations. You don't get people hassling you while you're in vacation. In fact, I had that in my last company. I had that situation. I would call in just to see how things were going on, and my administrative assistant say, "What do you want? Why are you calling? We don't need you." Some people might be offended by that, but that's the way it should be, because now you become you're a big company. Your company is valuable.
I think a great point to mention here is around the mindset around that. I think that some people get scared if their business doesn't need them, right? Because they may want to be, not consciously, but unconsciously, want to be in control and connected to everything. And it's one of those areas where our brain tricks us, because really you want to create a business that doesn't need you. And that's what success is. It's not growing a big business that needs you everywhere, right? So I think there is a mindset shift there that people unconsciously need to step into, that it's not about being needed that makes you important. It's about not being needed.
That's a huge problem, Penny, that a lot of people have that macho attitude that, if they need me, if it weren't for me, the company would be nothing.
Right. That's what I heard you say. So I wanted to highlight that for people who may not even be conscious of that connection and why they are maybe a little hesitant to delegate and to let go of some of the activities. I find that one of the biggest challenges that I see with business owners is that they don't want to let go. They say they do, but they won't take action to let go.
You're right, because they don't know what they're going to do after the show is over. There are people dealing with that to help people. I wish I had it, because I didn't know what I was going to do. I just knew because I was in my late 50s when I sold my company. I had long ago given up golf. So, what am I going to do? I had a friend came along and said, "Hey, why don't you join me in mergers and acquisitions?" So I did, and I enjoyed it and learned an awful lot in that whole process, because I was looking from the other side of the equation.
Right. New things will always open up, right? New and better, and to bring us to that next level of growth.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you, so why is this important to you right now to create this system and to bring it to small businesses, or, you said between 500 and 5 million?
Well, primarily because they're not even aware of the problem. And the other part of it is I have done a lot of things in my career, and my wife got ill a few years ago, and I sold my brokerage and got involved in writing and doing a lot of researching. And when she passed, I could either grieve for the rest of my life or find a purpose. And so my purpose really going forward my purpose and my mission really is to make small businessmen and women aware of the problem that only 20% of those going to market are actually going to sell. A lot of them are basing their retirement getting that money. And if they can't sell their company, they won't have access to that money that they have, locked in their company for retirement or perhaps their next big venture. So,
right. Wouldn't it be a shame that you've got all that value that you created? It's like having money in the bank that you can't access.
That's right.
Knowing it's there, but not being able to access it because you created a job for yourself instead of creating a business.
You hit the nail right on the head. You're exactly right. And the other part of my mission really is I've developed what I call 4-step process to help small business owners fix the problem themselves. Because a lot of them are reluctant to spend thousands of dollars on a consultant to come in and help them. So what I try to do is create a system for them to do it themselves. And so I've written a book about that called the XITpro System. And also I have an online course for those people that need more accountability and structure of the same name. So that will allow the business owner to evaluate their company. I've developed a couple of tools to help them evaluate their company easily and quickly and match, what the business buyer type wants with what they have and improve what the business buyer type wants. Those value drivers that I mentioned earlier, find out what of those value drivers are most important to that buyer type and then improve those value drivers that buyer type wants.
Well, that is super valuable. I think everybody needs to buy that book. If you are a business owner or an entrepreneur, even thinking about starting a business, start with the mindset of saying, I want to build it so that I can sell it. Even if you decide not to sell it, you decide to pass it to your kids or whatever, you need to have this basis of information. Tom, I can't even tell you how important this is that we're opening up this thought process for people. I'm super excited about what you've created and what it means to them.
Well, thank you very much, Penny. My mission really is to yell this from the rooftops and just get the message out there. As there are 5 million businesses just in the United States between 500,000 and 5 million. So if over 80% don't sell, that's a lot of businesses and that's a lot of money. And who does it hurt? It not only hurts the business owner and her family, it hurts the employees because they're going to be out of a job. It hurts the community. Who likes to see a locked up, facility? And it hurts the country. If you do some basic mathematics on how much money is lost, it's over $2 trillion.
Wow.
There are a lot of problems here that don't just affect the business owner.
Yep, absolutely. So tell us before we end the show, I want to hear a little bit about some of your story. So what's the most challenging thing that happened as you were selling your business?
Well, the problem was I didn't know who the buyer types were. I had a pretty good idea that it was going to be a larger company in the same industry, but I didn't know what they were looking for. And we had about a 2-year period before we made the decision to sell and putting the company on the market. And during that time, we think, what can we do to increase the value? So we did a couple of things. We expanded geographically from New England into New York and New Jersey, and that cost us a ton of money. And we also developed an electronic medical record. That cost us, a lot of money also. Well, it turns out the eventual buyer already had offices in New York and New Jersey interested in that. They also had their own electronic medical record. They weren't interested in our technology. It turns out they were interested in our customer base.
Right.
Because they had products that we didn't have that they could immediately sell to our customer base. So when they acquired us, they not only got our revenues and profits, they got our customers that they could immediately get more revenue from by selling products that we didn't have.
Right. That's a great experience that you just shared, because when you think it's one thing and you invest a lot of money and effort, it didn't change the value of your company potentially for them. Is that correct?
It didn't. And in fact, if I knew what I know now,
yep,
I would have hired more salespeople in the area because that's what
more customers.
And I would have gotten more customers.
Yeah.
I would have saved money because I wouldn't have spent as much money. So that money that I saved would have dropped to the bottom line and increased my profitability and my cash flow. So my value would have been higher from having more customers that they wanted and having a better cash flow. So I would have probably, it affected my sale by over 20%.
That's huge. Wow.
It is huge.
That's huge. So important for people to think about what decisions are you making today strategically? Where are you investing your time, your money, and your energy? And will it make sense for the future value of your company? That's a really key question. And I find something that I talk about a lot in a different context is that one of the things that business owners do not do that's so critical is take time to step back out of their business and to ask those critical questions, right? It's just to schedule, a half a day, or even if you can only make it 1 hour a week, to step back and look at your business as a whole and see, are you investing in the right areas? Are you getting the results that you're looking for? And like you said, are you attracting the right types of people for a future sale or whatever that is? So how do you get people to, when you're working with them, how do you get them to take that time that's necessary away from their business so that they can think more strategically and work on their business?
Well, I think a couple of things have to happen, Penny. They need to spend time on improving their business. That's what my book and my system is all about, is making your company, by improving all of these value drivers that we talked about, they're making their company more efficient and effective.
Mm-hmm.
And make their company more effective and efficient, they'll have more time to spend on their business rather than in their business. So that's the first thing they need to do. And that's going to take them some time, weekends and evenings, whenever they can find the time to start making these improvements. The first thing they have to do is find out what they need to improve.
Right.
And then improve those things to make their business more effective and efficient. Then they'll have the time. And that's basically what we were talking about earlier when we were talking about business-free vacations and, being able to go to organization meetings and seminars and not getting panic calls from your office because now you're more dispensable.
Yes.
That's the first thing they need to do. And then the second thing is, are they a growth company or are they a lifestyle company? There are people that are out there that are making a lot of money and they could care less about growing.
Mm-hmm.
But then they can go play golf, or they can, if they've got their company working effectively, like a well-oiled machine, then they can go play golf, or they can go sailing, or whatever they want to do. Or if they're growth-oriented, then they can do what you were suggesting, is think about, how am I going to grow this? What new products can I come out with? How can I improve the products I have? What areas, geographic areas, can I expand to easily? So you can start thinking about these things, how to grow your company.
Right. And even if you're a lifestyle business, take that time to reflect, to say, how can I get this so that I automate it or someone else takes it over from me? How do I free up my time? Right.
Right.
So that reflection time is going to help you one way or the other to really see things, like you said, to find out what area to invest that time and energy on. So important stuff.
It's really critical, I think, to, the times that I walked away when I was in brokerage, when I walked away from people, knowing in the first visit that they weren't going to be able to sell that company. I wouldn't be able to sell it. And then there were times when I took something on the margin thinking, well, maybe I can sell it, and not being able to sell it. And the disappointment of these people, it was so sad. And then there are people that need to sell their company because of some external event they had no control.
Right.
And we call them the 4 Ds, the desperate 4 Ds, death, disability, divorce, debt. All right. And, any one of these things can affect the need for somebody to sell their company. And if they can't sell their company, it really affected me to a point.
So why not be ready, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Be ready. So I know we could pick your brain for another half a day, but we're going to have to bring this to a close for people. Perhaps we'll bring you back and dig deeper into one of those particular areas. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, my pleasure, Penny.
Just give us the URLs of where people can find you and get a hold of your book and your system.
Well, they can get my book on Amazon, and it's called XITpro System. I call it XITpro, just leave off the E.
Right.
XITpro. And the URL is XITpros.com.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And for all of you listening, you need to get that book and you need to take a look at that program, because That's really going to help you to step back and look at your business in a completely different way, much more strategically. And it's going to help you to grow it regardless of whether you really want to sell it in the future or not. It's going to help you to grow it or create that lifestyle that you want. And at the same time, be prepared, because then you'd be in a position, if you wanted to put it up for sale if one of those unfortunate 4Ds come, or just that you want to retire and move on. So thank you all for being here. And my name is Penny Zanker, and this is Take Back Time. I'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you for listening. Today's topic is another opportunity for you to put the knowledge you learned into practice. Tune in again next week for more strategies that will help you have more energy and focus to get more done in less time, so you can continue to take back time.